All right, so we're going to talk about all 4 ventilation modes of the Veta 5, but we're going to particularly focus on the first 2. The first one says VS, which is volume support, and the second one says VCV, which is volume control ventilation. Those are going to be the 2 modes that we primarily use. So when you bring a patient in the OR and you go ahead and put them on the ventilator, it's going to automatically be on the VS function, which is volume support. And in that function, basically what we're asking the ventilator to do is to support each patient's breath. So if they take a breath, the machine's going to help give them a normal tidal volume breath. And then it's going to, it has right here, it says minimum respiratory rate. And so you can tell it the minimum respiratory rate you want to have. So if the patient doesn't take a breath, it's going to provide that breath to the patient. And if the patient triggers a breath, it's going to help that patient breathe. So that's what the machine is going to be set on when you roll into the OR and you throw the ventilator switch to automatic. But what I recommend you put all patients on is the VCV ventilation, which is volume control ventilation. So you have your tidal volume, you have your respiratory rate, you have your I to E ratio, which is going to be preset at 1:2. And that's inspiratory time, how long it takes to inhale versus how long it takes to exhale. That's an I to E ratio. And we want that to be about 1:2. You don't really have to worry about the PEEP function and the trigger function. Those are just some more advanced functions the machine can do, but most of our patients, we don't need to worry about that. So we'll go ahead and hit the green arrow because the settings we had are what we wanted. And so now the ventilator is basically, you're asking the ventilator that you want the ventilator to give 300 mils and you want it to do that 10 breaths a minute with an I to E ratio of 1:2. So down here is what you're asking the ventilator to do, and then the ventilator is actually telling you and talking back to you and telling you what it's doing. So the numbers up here in orange and blue, it's telling you what the peak inspiratory pressure is, which is about 10 centimeters of water. Great, that's where we want it. PEEP is peak end expiratory pressure, and it's always going to be 2 to 3 because the bellows is ascending and it needs a little bit of peak end expiratory pressure so the bellows stay up. And then it's telling you it's giving 297 mils and you're asking for 300. It's 3 mils difference. We're going to be totally fine with that. And then it's telling you what rate that the ventilator is giving those breaths at. So if the patient's bucking the ventilator, you might notice that that rate changes. Let's see if I can change it. Even though, so now it's going to go up and the ventilator's going to get mad at me, but this is the fun things we do, right? So now it's like, okay, your respiratory rate's going to 18, but you're asking me to give 10. And so when you see a discrepancy like that, you know probably your patient's bucking the ventilator because the machine's telling you there's way more breaths happening than what the machine's being asked to deliver. Okay, so the surgeon finishes closing. So this alarm, minute ventilation too high. So the machine's preset to a minute ventilation of 6 liters a minute, which is roughly equivalent to human minute ventilation. And minute ventilation is your respiratory rate times your tidal volume. So if your patient starts to buck or you have a big Great Dane on the table, you're going to have to change that. So I just put it to 12 because most patients won't go above 12. And then you'll be good to go. Now it's giving us another airway pressure alarm. So it says PAW too low. So PAW means the pressure in the airway is too low. So you probably have a leak somewhere in your circuit. I'm going to turn this up and just fill up our bellows because probably when I was pretending to be a dog that was waking up as somebody was stabbing its belly, it got mad. Okay. So we'll go back to a liter a minute. Our bellows are back to going to the top at the end of each breath. So now the surgeon's done doing surgery, they're closing. That can be a good time where you switch ventilation modes and you put them on VS, which is volume support ventilation. And this is a good way to wean them off of volume control ventilation. So volume support ventilation, now you're going to give the dog an opportunity to breathe on their own. And if they need help, then this machine is gonna kick in and help that dog breathe. So right now we have it set at a minimum of 4 breaths per minute, and that might be okay for some dogs. In other dogs, you'll see your end tidal CO2 start to go up because they're not breathing as much as when they were on the ventilator. So you might find that you still want to keep your end tidal below, say 50. You might still have to increase that minimum respiratory rate a little bit so that you maintain a normal end tidal CO2 as the patient's starting to breathe on their own. So that's basically volume support and volume control ventilation.